Good evening again, folks. How are you? Good to see you all. I am still Andy Trinan, President and CEO here at the Fraser History Museum, where the world meets Kentucky. Welcome to celebrating Tom Owen, Louisville's famed historian. Those of you who know Tom probably won't be surprised by this story, but at about 4:30 today, Rachel called Tom, and she's like, okay, we got a parking lot behind the museum. You just drive by on 9th Street and you park in the back right there on Washington. And Tom said, I'm on the bus. We thought, that's perfect. That is the perfect description of this man. One of the things that Tom's favorite things that he loves to hear is, I didn't know that. And how many times has he heard, I didn't know that over his career? Tonight, we are very excited that hopefully, before you leave here tonight, you're going to have a whole lot of I didn't know that's about Tom. You're going to learn some things about this great man that you didn't know before. So we're going to turn it over to Tom. He's going to speak a little bit, and then we're really going to turn up the heat because we're going to bring up a number of speakers, people that he has worked with over the years, and they're going to talk about the impact that he has had on their lives. And I know that this attention is going to make him a little bit uncomfortable, and I think that's kind of cool. I think that's fine. Tonight alone, he can squirm a little bit, right? You guys will help us with that. So he'll feel that heat, and we are going to have a wonderful evening. So thank you all for being here on behalf of our board of directors and our wonderful staff here at the Fraser History Museum, who are doing a great job to mean more to more people every single day. So let's get the party started. I'd like to introduce my colleague and my dear friend, Rachel Platt, who I worked with for years at WHS 11 and is now an integral part of our team here at the Fraser History Museum as our Director of Community Engagement. She is going to co-host the first portion of the program with one of our partners tonight, Bill Goodman, the Executive Director of Kentucky Humanities Council, which Tom is a part of and many people here in the room are a part of. Thank you so much, Bill, for being here. And you may also know Bill for his longtime association with KET. So without further ado, kill my microphone and let them take it from here.
We're all good.
Good evening. That's Corey, and he is really quick to kill my microphone.
He's like, you're done. Sit down. All right, thank you so much, Andy. We appreciate it. And one of our other co-workers, Kelsey Starks, is here. There she is right there, now with KET. So we had to get the whole HAS family here tonight. So good to see everybody. We do want to start, and I'm going to kind of address the camera here for a reason. Want to start with a personal note on behalf of the Owen family tonight. Tom's wife, Phyllis, his beloved wife and partner of 59 years, is not able to join us in person tonight. Phyllis was diagnosed with an illness recently, and she is currently involved in a treatment cycle that has sapped some of her energy. Both she and Tom decided together that it would be best for her to attend remotely. She is watching from home on a special feed along with her son, Stephen, and his wife, Cindy. Phyllis, we are sending our love, we are sending our prayers, and you are definitely with us tonight. Please know that. Don't you agree, audience? If you know them, and I've gotten to know them as a couple leading up to this program, you know that they are a team in every sense of the word. She was going to join us on stage with Tom tonight. Instead, we have their wonderful daughter, Elisa, who is going to join us, and we really appreciate that. We think that'll be wonderful. There are many sides to Tom Owen, as we all know. We've talked about him tonight. Historian, politician with the Board of Aldermen and Metro Council, activist, environmentalist, known, of course, for riding his bike everywhere.
Tom, it's such a pleasure to be with you and the family tonight, and we want to say and bring our best wishes to Phyllis and the family who are with her tonight. Just a little bit of a background and bio of Tom. For those of you who aren't that familiar with every little detail of his career, been associated with the University of Louisville. That's dating back to 1968. Your PhD is from the University of Kentucky, that other school up the road away. A master's from the University of Louisville. You attended Kentucky Wesleyan College down in Owensboro, and for a while went to seminary in Ohio and became a Methodist minister. How many of y'all knew that? Oh, everybody knew
Well,
that.
no. Who didn't know? I heard some. I didn't know that. See, we're about half and half on that one.
Methodist minister, and he started preaching when he was 18 years old. How many of you knew that?
All right, there's some insiders. Family, you can't answer those. Family doesn't count all that.
He also went about his way with those various and sundry degrees. And Rachel, you've got some more details.
Absolutely. We can't forget, of course, the legendary walking tours and the fact that he is a very devoted family man. A whole lot of his loved ones. If you're an Owen, raise your hand. Okay. I was going to say, I know we have a whole lot in the audience tonight. So without further ado, our man of the hour, along with his wonderful daughter, Elisa Owen, are joining us now. Join us on stage as we get the interview started. Tom, we're going to have you on the inside chair.
All right.
Perfect.
Is the mic wired?
It is hot and ready to go.
Ready to go.
Very
All right.
good.
It would have bothered all of us of a certain generation, Tom, if you had leaped upon the stage. I'll have to tell you that. So we're glad
Well,
that
I
you did
did that a little earlier for
I-
effect.
I
believe
saw
me,
you.
believe me.
We do want to point out that while we're in a conversation with Tom and Lisa, that there will be some pictures. Some of you will recognize playing behind us. And in fact, I think there's one or two that you can probably relate to and choose and pick out right away that we'll talk about. Those pictures will be playing throughout the conversation that we have tonight. Louisville, Tom, of course, is your hometown.
Yes.
You grew up right here and in the Parkland neighborhood. Tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up and being a Louisvillian growing up in the neighborhood that you did.
A couple of things, 10 seconds, are very brief. My father and my grandfather were both mail carriers in multiple parts of Louisville. So my family was also modestly entrepreneurial, so we looked at property in all parts of Louisville, thinking we might buy a motel on Dixie Highway and move into it and manage the motel while my dad continued to work at the post. So I got around the community a whole lot. And I early on felt that there was some personal identity with the place, that this was some place that I knew people, my family knew people, my family knew people, and that somehow the broader community. Now, race was real, and the racial division in Parkland was real, and my white privilege did not branch beyond 32nd Street very far. Now, I knew a few African Americans, but not many. So it was a white Parkland that I knew in the 1940s and into the 1950s. But I felt a very strong sense of belonging to the community.
I was going to say, in some of the pictures that you'll see go by, we should mention Atherton High School. They're also a view of winning the Democracy Cup.
Yes, yes. Atherton High School is almost an accident. I lived by that time in 1952 in Audubon Park, which is in the county school system. What? Before 1975. And so I lived in the county school district, but somehow, and I know my parents were not involved, the county wanted to get rid of us, those of us who lived near the city-county line, and so we could choose a city school to go to. So I came dropping into Atherton High School as a junior, having gone to school in Oklahoma, 8th, 9th, 10th grade. So, and there is a beloved continuing friend from that period, and I just said something to him keenly I walked into that cafeteria as a junior knowing no one, and the friend who's here tonight welcomed me to sit down at the table.
Did you want to say who they were?
Oh, it's Kenny Ziegert. He's here tonight, right there. Yes, yes. No,
Very good.
No question. No question.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
What a story.
I know. Elisa, real fast, how would you describe your father? Let's bring you into this conversation.
Well, let me say that I'm not sure who said this quote, but I know it's been important to me, and it is that there are two things you can give your children. One is roots, the other is wings. So although Mom and Dad have been like a DNA strand, you know, going up and doing a little bit of both, I think it's fair to say that Dad was definitely on the roots side, the sense of place, the belonging, he's the one that taught me that when you go into any new community, you say something like, how do people here make their money? Where is the watershed? You know, things.
You know that. I taught her son about the watershed, where the water comes when it comes off the roof and down the downspout, onto the driveway, onto the. I'm sorry.
No, you're all right. I'm used to it. Anyway, so they both were roots and wings in the sense that they always showed up to our games, to our plays, to our even things that they probably hated going to. They never didn't show up.
That's true.
But here's the way that they were a little bit different. Mom was really on the wings side, and she thought we could do anything. So I'll give you an example of that.
That's true.
So I'm in Spain, and I'm living there for a year. And we don't have cell phones, so like every week we call Mom and Dad, and I tell them stories about what has happened with my Spanish family, two of whom happen to be sitting over there. But so I tell them what has happened in Madrid, and Mom says, and Dad says, did you talk to Nieves in Spanish or in English?
Your host mother.
Now, that was my host mother, and I'm not saying Dad did not believe in us, but he had a little bit more fear that maybe the wings weren't as strong as Mom thought they were.
One thing I quickly want to do before Bill asks the next question. When I was talking to Phyllis leading up to this, she said, he's the talker, she's the doer. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
We all agree with that?
Absolutely. And amplifying what Elisa just said, I'm telling you, I had a full-time job at U of L, and for 23 of 27 years had a 30-hour-a-week second part-time job. And I think your mother showed up more than I did, but I still managed to show up a whole lot of the time, I felt like.
He's asking for that validation. Yes, Dad, you did.
Okay.
I need a little reinforcement about that, but
Okay.
I really think we worked at that hard.
One real quick question. You met Phyllis when she sang a solo at church?
Oh, that's true. In the Parkland neighborhood. I did not live at that time in the Parkland neighborhood, but I had organized a church on the outer loop out in the Highview neighborhood. And organizing a church means being given 5 acres of land. Methodist Church said, here's 5 acres of land. Go find a congregation, meet in a new elementary school, and start a church. And at 22 with 1 semester of seminary, I did that. I did that. Startlingly did that. But yes, we didn't have Sunday night service, and in those days, there are 4 people in this room that remember there used to be a Sunday morning service in the Protestant tradition, a Sunday night service, and a Wednesday night service. I did not, that's called prayer meeting, and I did not have a Sunday night service. So my brother and his wife at the time had a father who was pastor of the old church that she went to, that I had been raised in, and he brought me back for a Sunday night service. And Phyllis sang, "His eye is on the sparrow." And she was in the choir loft behind me. And after some days, weeks of nervously fidgeting about calling her, I finally called her and got a date.
Very good. You were smitten from the start. All
Yes.
right.
What
Yes,
a perfect segue into this next line of conversation. I don't know if you're watching Tom as closely as I am, but just a moment ago, his hands were in the prayer pose. And I want to take you back to your probably a rich but a brief ministerial career, and let you talk a little bit about why you might not have stayed in the preacherhood as long as you did.
Yeah, I would say that depending on how you count, for 2.5 years in college, I was a part-time rural pastor in McLean County, Kentucky. For 3 years, I was a full-time pastor with 1 semester of seminary in Louisville. And then I crashed and bombed at Pleasure Ridge Park after I was fully ordained as a Methodist minister. Why did I leave? I think I was somewhat a liberal progressive. I would say a liberal progressive at a time of hippiedom and longer hair and opposition to the war and civil rights activism and all of that. We're talking about, you all, the 1960s. I finished full ordination in 1966. So that's when I finished full ordination. So I was always kind of out of step with some of the people in my congregation. Phyllis really didn't love it. And in addition to that, I always felt uncomfortable that people were going to hide the Playboy magazine when they saw me knocking on the front door. And I just hated that role. I hated that role. And so I think there were multiple dynamics, but those were among them.
Elisa, you're...
Oh, by the way, I was getting fired after 1 year.
Oh, there was that.
I forgot to well, in the Methodist Church, you don't get fired. You get shipped, and I was going to be shipped at the end of 1 year. That's true. They loved me. They said, but I was just too weird for them. It was that simple.
Elisa, you're a minister as well.
I am.
What kind of influence, if any, was your father and your mother when you were growing up and looking at...
You need to be honest about that.
Well, I never expected to be a pastor. I was always interested in things human, like my dad.
Yes.
What makes us human? How can we be better humans? How can we live together? What is truth?
Yes.
What is justice? All of those things have been guiding marks of my career from the beginning, right? Yes. But the thought that I would be a pastor would have appalled me at any time except for when I decided to go to seminary. And here's what happened when I decided to go to seminary. I mean, it was his influence also, because those questions I think he would resonate with as well. Yes. But I think that what I realized when I was in seminary, I was in Washington, D.C., and I was working, doing electric energy and traveling abroad and doing World Bank contracts and everything I ever dreamed of, because I did international relations, and I was traveling around doing restructuring and privatization in electric energy. But if I thought to myself, which I did, which it comes from him, this kind of thinking, what if I got run over by a bus tomorrow? What would I want to be doing? And I'll be damned if I didn't go to seminary.
So, did you have long and deep conversations with your father about that, or was it a decision?
Not really. I'll tell you what I did do, which was really, really fun, and I still value to this day. My dad, like myself, we write in the margins of books. And so there was this big wall of books in our living room, and I went in there one day and I stacked like 2 huge stacks of books, and I said, I'm taking these. And he said, oh? And I said, yeah, I'm taking these and I'm going to read them. And I read them all. And it was a conversation of sorts, because I was reading the theology books And I was also reading my dad's notes in the theology books. And so, was there influence? Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tom, your history has been written and rewritten at the University of Louisville, although you did spend that period of time at the University of Kentucky working on your PhD.
Terminal degree.
Talk to us about terminal degree. Talk to us a little bit about the university and what it has meant to you in your
University
life.
of Louisville. Lord goodness. I'm a Louisvillian. Raised here. Phyllis was raised here. I remember coming on campus when we won the NIT championship in 1955, if that was is that correct? 1955. I remember, and plus in order to get to a family 10-cent store, a variety store that my mother ran for about 5 years out in Highland Park, I took a city bus. There's tradition here, a city bus from the West End out to Highland Park, where is just another mile beyond beyond Cardinal Stadium on Floyd Street. So I knew the university. So I did not expect to be a university professor or a university anything. I expected to be a minister, and then when that ended, I flew through myself on what to do next. I was going to be a community. I interviewed for jobs all across the state because a Bachelor of Divinity was valued the same as a master's in maybe social work. And so they were starting community mental health programs all across the state. I swear I interviewed for 3 of them and didn't get any of them. And so I had 19. Yeah, I had a child on the way, and so I ended up getting a master's in history, starting in a master's in history. And then I started teaching full-time with barely a master's in history at U of L, and I taught there 3 years full-time. Well, by that time I was married to the university, committed to its campus, its history, its people, its knowledge of it. And so then I went away for a doctorate for 3 years, with the assistance of my parents. Absolutely, the commitment of my parents. With Phyllis typing dissertations part-time. By that time we had 3 children, with this one just being born in Lexington. And so then I threw myself on the world job market in 1975. Nothing. Four interviews, nothing. Ended up getting a federal job at U of L to train as an archivist. It was called the Comprehensive Employment Training Act, 1975. Slipped and stumbled in it and stayed. And that's the story.
Well, lucky us.
Well,
We're glad you bombed in those interviews.
and may I say, in that period of 47 years, is it conceivable that I've had 2 bosses? One's here tonight. And both have allowed me to be a community historian while I'm at the same time struggling to be an archivist. Do you know what that means? That means creating gifts of material to the archives. At my best, taking that material, sorting it, and describing it, and then making it available. I'm somewhat weak in that, though I work at it and do fairly well, I work at it, but my 2 bosses have allowed me to be a community historian. In 47 years. Is that a gift? So any given day of my life, any given day, in the face of what I have lived through as a privileged white guy with real opportunities, I have received gratitude after gratitude. I extend gratitude after gratitude after gratitude. If there's any single word, it would be I've slipped and fallen in it once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and somehow survived doing it. And I'm just so pleased that I've been able to do it.
We love that. We're going to ask a few more questions and then get to our speakers real fast here. In that, you started doing history tours.
Yes,
You started thinking about politics. Community and public service just seems to fit who you are. Your wife said, don't sit back and talk about it, and that's kind of how it started. If you're going to do it, let's do something about it.
I had begun to imagine that I might run for political office. And Phyllis said, don't you sit around here saying I might have, I could have, I would have, I should have. Either you know what I'm going to say next, but it's not appropriate. And that's what Phyllis said. And the rest is history.
Very good.
Oh, by the way, I had memorized as a 13-year-old the presidential oath of office. So I may have had some aspiration. Can we agree on that? Fell a little short.
All of you that were downstairs a minute ago and saw Morgan's film know that Tom did spend some time in politics. The Board of Aldermen, on the council for so long, ran against Dave Armstrong in 1998 for mayor. Walked every ward of the city at one time, a metaphor for his entire life. 29 miles, I think somebody has put
Yes.
in our notes.
One weekend we walked 29 miles.
Which beats the heck out of a 13.1 mini marathon backwards.
Sleeping in various parts of the old city at the time. We were talking about the old city in 1998.
So
yes.
So all that's important, and that's part of who you are and what people remember about you. What makes, Tom, just real quickly, what makes this city tick? What did you learn? What did people tell you? What passion did it wrought up in you that you wanted to do something about?
Here's the way I framed it, and I think I could still frame it this way. If I don't do it, somebody else will. Somebody may do it a whole lot better than I could do it. But I'm telling you, there are plenty who would replace me and who could take the thing down the drain. There is such a thing as dangerous negative leadership. And if I didn't do it, I think I felt like my intentions were decent, that my intentions are decent. And so I really think that there's always the possibility of, and I'm not framing this language well, but I know what I'm trying to say, that there is a dangerous political leader, and they are legion. They are legion. And if people of decent intention don't stand up and do it, then I think there are those in the wings who have a dangerous intent.
You're getting some amens out there tonight.
I think I heard that too.
I believe that with my heart.
Let me ask you this. We go back, and I love that political cartoon that has you standing next to Dave Armstrong, the cheerleader, and, as enthusiastic as you were. That was a tough race, I know, to lose. It was a very close race.
Yes.
Tell me the lessons learned with that.
Pick it up and keep going. I was disappointed, although in fairness, in some ridiculous, kind of crazy way, relieved, because I don't know what kind of mayor I would have been. Part of it is what circumstances are handed to you. Part of it is the momentary impulses to step forward in the midst of crisis and to be the person that you could be, want to be, intend to be. But that day you might not be that person. So so relief is not a good word, but certainly I learned that life goes on, that you're going to continue to do what you can do and be what you can be. And I guess that's the best lesson I learned.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I think that, Rachel, we've learned so much about Tom and Elisa and the family tonight. It sort of leads us to the point where we want to hear from others that maybe we ought to ask the big question. Tom, and instead of asking a legacy question, although you're certainly welcome to answer that if you would like, I think I'd rather ask how you want to be thought of, how you want to be remembered, what do you want to leave that others can learn from that you have demonstrated in your life?
Lisa touched on it a minute ago, and I think it's, and I don't know where it comes from. I mean, it's a gift. I guess it's a gift. I have been gifted with believing broadly in humanity. And that includes the story in human action, and the story in human condition, the story of all of us. And I have never been, I think, historically at least, inclined to admire potentates, or the princes and the potentates, or the wealthy. And I've always enjoyed the stories of everyone. Why would I be on a bus tonight? It's because part of it, I mean, I have a car. Phyllis is not using a car right now. Could I have driven down here? Sure. But I feel better out on the street. I feel better among people, and among broad numbers of people, broad conditions of people. And did you ask me what would I be wanted to be remembered? That's fine. That right there is fine. As a person who was curious, I think I'm also gifted with curiosity, kind of a boundless curiosity and an energetic curiosity. But more than that, a curiosity about a lot of things and a lot of people and a lot of conditions of people. That's enough for me. Thanks.
There's a picture of you as a child with the glasses on that I loved, and I said, that curious young boy. I love that picture. So make sure when you all see it, I love that picture.
May I comment 10 seconds on that picture? That picture came from a little book that the family did for me. I wrote 52 essays, and I chose the pictures that went into this book that was just published this last year. It's self-published. I mean, it's an inside book. No one else needs to read it. It's 52 essays. But my point is, why that picture? I swear, anybody that's in their head knows what I'm going to say. So I'm not telling anyone anything new. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how much you've lived. In the core of every single person is that kid. In this sense, cross-eyed kid with his belt just under his nipples, with two big old thick glasses on him. Who am I? And that core is me. And still, I'm not telling you anything. No, you know that. You know that. I know you know that. Because I don't care how many layers of sophistication, how many layers of degrees, how many layers of anything you got, how much wealth you've got, how much achievement you got. In that core is the human from right there.
When that picture comes up, somebody make sure I know that when it comes up that we can see it. I love that.
Well, that's true.
I love that. Thank you all. Now, Tom is going to stay. Elisa, we're going to have you go back in the audience. Andy's going to come up. Thank you, Bill Goodman. Be careful getting off this stage. Now we've got all sorts of special guests. We're going to bring up that podium. Take off. Just give us a second here. We're going to organize a few things. Thank you.
Thank you, Micah.
Oh, yeah, you're great. No, you're perfect. Thank you. And then we'll bring that other chair up and we'll be good. Are you ready for this, Tom?
I guess.
We had a debate. Do we let Tom go sit back in the audience, or do we have him sit here and squirm as people talk about it?
But don't you all want to see his reaction as people are talking? Yes, oh, thank you. That's the picture we're talking about right there. Is it not fabulous? When he sent that to me, I was like, oh my gosh, that's my favorite picture. Because I do, that vulnerability in all of us, right?
That's right.
For the record, I wanted you to be able to go sit down, and Rachel said, let's make him squirm.
Thank you, Randy.
Well, that doesn't surprise
Thank you,
Tom,
Andy.
I'm sure of it.
Somebody has a heart.
Our first guest is Reverend Roland Tarter, a friend of Tom since their college days at Kentucky Wesleyan. Both went to seminary, but at different times. Reverend Tarter has directed community mental health programs in central Kentucky, and he came tonight all the way from Danville, Kentucky. Welcome.
He's covered everything I had to say. Yes, this is a wonderful event, and I'm so thankful to have your invitation to be a part of it.
Thank you.
Tom and I have some interesting parallels in our relationship and history. Yes, we are alums of Kentucky Wesleyan College. Yes, we are alums of the Methodist Theological School in Ohio. Yes, we were ordained in the United Methodist Church of the Louisville Conference. And yes, for reasons we have never discussed, we both became Presbyterians. But when we were in college together, we both could have been a part of a not-so-secretive group that could have been called the Society of Adolescent Student Pastors.
That's right.
Adolescent. Let that roll around in your head a while. You'll be right. And while we were in college, the parallel is that we actually served the same churches. He for 2 years and I for a year.
Huh. Is that right?
And
I didn't know that.
when you saw that order of worship that he'd done in 1958, did you notice the sermon title? As Strange as It Seems. The right word would have been freaky. But we served 2 churches in McLean County, and they were very cordial and hospitable people.
Yes, they were.
They were generous, they were patient, they were long-suffering.
Oh, Lord. Lord, Lord.
They were used to students.
Yeah.
But as I look back on that now, Tom, I think, what was our impact on those people?
Showing up.
And I think we tested the limits of their forbearance.
I am sure that's true, too. Yes, yes.
So I will simply say, for the impact on this city, there was a young man named Owen, who for his impact, our thanks we are all showing, and Owen, not a man of mystery. He loved the stories of history, and for him, our love we are showing.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you very much. All right, now to our colleagues from the University of Louisville. He's worked with many, many wonderful folks through the years. Remember, his first job there was 68, then in 75. In the audience tonight, where's his cheering section from the University of Louisville? I knew you were here. Very good.
Yes.
I know we also have a shout out to Jennifer Oberhausen. Yes, okay, very good. Sherry Pawson and Carrie Daniels are doing the talking tonight. We'll get them to come forward. We'll have them both come up together. Carrie is the director of the University of Louisville's Archives and Special Collections. She's worked for Tom for nearly 20 years, but we're going to begin with Sherry, who's worked with Tom for 31 years. Wow.
Yes.
Even collaborated on a
Jeez.
book on U of L's Belknap campus in 2017. So Sherry, we'll start with you. There's that chair.
I wish this was a roast because I have so many great stories I could tell, but I promised Phyllis it would not be a roast. So I just have one little funny story to tell about Tom. You saw in the video him on his bike, the blinky lights and the yellow vest and the hat and the rear view mirror. Well, even in the rain, he rides that bike. And he puts on this rain jacket with his suit and his tie, his pants, and he'll put these slickery pants on over it, and then he takes a rubber band and puts around his pant leg so the pant leg doesn't get caught in the bicycle spokes. I say all that to say one morning he came into the archives about 45 minutes late, and he was never late. Unless the bus was late, Tom wasn't late. And he was flustered because he had lost his wallet, and he had retraced his steps. He had been back home. He had called TARC, he had went to the coffee shop. He was just a mess because he could not find this wallet. So towards the end of the day, he comes out by my desk and he's gonna get an archival box, and he squats down next to me and gets out the box. And I look and he's still wearing those pants. He's wearing those slickery, noisy pants all day. And then I look and there's something weird on his leg. And I said, Tom, what's on your leg? And he kind of slaps at his ankle and he sticks his hand all the way down in his pants, comes out with the wallet. He had spent the entire day with his wallet trapped between his rain pants and his work pants, and he did not know it. So next time you see him doing a walking tour, next time you see him in front of a fancy group of people, think about him and his wallet next to his pants. I love you, Phyllis.
Thank you. Thank you.
So yes, I'm Carrie Daniels. I am Tom's boss, at least nominally. And that means that I'm the one who has it in their job description that at least once a year I get to tell them how awesome he is. I can do it more often if I want. So, and honestly, if I said everything that I wanted to say about Tom tonight, we'd be here for a really long time, and they told me I only have like 3 minutes that I'm sharing with Sherry. So I'm going to talk really fast. So I'm going to focus on one thing, and that's that Tom is a celebrity reference archivist.
Amen.
Yeah, you didn't even know, most of you didn't even know that was a thing. You might not even know what a reference archivist is, but he's a celebrity. Seriously, though, people come into our research room and they have a question, a burning question about history, and they ask specifically for Tom. And you know, sometimes if he's not there, and they kind of have to work with one of the rest of us, they're a little disappointed. I'm not casting aspersions on any of my colleagues. They're all quite awesome. But these are members of the Tom Owen fan club, and they will not be denied. And you know, you can't really blame him because when it comes to Louisville history, he really does know it all. And if he doesn't, just by some chance, doesn't know it, he will track it down and he will figure it out to at least 97% accuracy, certainty.
That's right. That's what I said. That's right.
So we know Tom is an amazing storyteller, but I think one of the biggest gifts that he's given to all of us is the ability to tell our own stories.
That's sweet. Thank you.
He has helped so many people. I couldn't even begin to count how many people have come to our research room or emailed him or called him or stopped him in the street because they want information about their community, about their neighborhood, about their family, about their favorite park, whatever. You know, and he's helped them track that down and share it. He's helped so many students. He's helped people write doctoral theses, dissertations, master's theses, random term papers, everything. He's had an enormous impact in that, not just telling stories himself, but helping other people to find their voices, and that is a huge, huge gift. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Yep. I will say one more thing, and that's that it has been a gift to me personally to work with you for the last 20 years, Tom, but this is not a retirement party, okay?
Yes.
Amen.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to working with you for another 20 years.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, not a retirement party.
Right on. Sherry and Carrie, thank you. Now to another longtime friend of Tom Owen, actually both Tom and Phyllis, Debbie Oberhausen. She's a retired librarian. She met Tom when he taught her the history of the world civilization when she was a college sophomore at U of L. They later became colleagues at the archives. She even helped with his first political campaign. Debbie and her husband consider Tom and Phyllis their dearest friends. Debbie, come on up.
I want to start this off by saying Phyllis did not tell me it wasn't a roast. So I'm sorry, Phyllis, but you should have given me that message.
Yes, bring it.
In 1970, when he taught me history of Western civilization, Mr. Owen, a TA, had a good reputation among students. So I was lucky. I was able to register early that semester and got in his class. At the end of the semester, though, all students had a one-on-one final exam, oral, not written.
Oh, my.
It's true.
After I successfully recounted my understanding of Erasmus of Rotterdam, I was assured by Tom that I was receiving an A for the class. However, when my grades arrived, I got a B.
Seems like I've heard this before.
He's called me a grade monger in the past, too. The first day of the next semester, I went to his office where he admitted his error and agreed to send in a change for my grade.
That's great. Good.
4 years later, when we were both working on advanced degrees at UK, we ran into each other. Tom, who never forgets a face, said, "Oh, it's my A student." The next year, back at U of L, we went on to be colleagues in the library. I also was hired under the Comprehensive Employment Training Act. And actually, my first title in the archives was reference archivist. I just want you to know that.
That's it.
I audited his History of Louisville class at the time, so I feel like I have gotten a lot of knowledge about history. But there were no more exams for me. That's why I audited it. It was at this time, though, that Denny and I became friends of Tom and Phyllis Owen. At one point, early in this friendship, though, Denny invited Tom. Denny's a do-it-yourself type of guy. He invites Tom to help him work on his chimney, where while standing on the roof, Denny realized Tom had dozed off. This scared Denny a whole lot more than it scared Tom. In 1989, after I'd been a stay-home mom for 10 years, Tom invited me to manage his first campaign for Board of Aldermen. What did I know about that? Not much. But what it turned out to be was hard work, eye-opening, and a fun experience. He paid for childcare out of his campaign funds so that I could send my youngest son, who was the only one not in school, to after-school daycare, or after preschool daycare. And my and 4 children, I truly believe, embrace politics and their feelings about the world and government because of this man.
Thank you.
They rode in a parade chanting, "Tom Owen for Alderman," over and over again.
Yes, you heard that.
Our friendship has meant many weekly get-togethers as well as trips, which Tom researches and is always the informal tour guide.
That's right.
On a trip to Williamsburg, we stopped at Hampton Institute to see an African art collection donated by William Henry Shepherd, as Tom knew that's who Louisville Shepherd Square was named for.
Wow.
In Ireland, I needed a Band-Aid. He had already walked down those streets on Google Earth, and he said, there's a pharmacy around the corner. He was almost as knowledgeable as our paid tour guides. And on our cruise down the Danube, he kept asking question after question. He kept them on their toes. And, you know, he had taught Western Civ. 53 years after our first encounter, I am so grateful for Tom and Phyllis's friendship and getting to know their wonderful family. When I had teenagers, I remember asking Phyllis, give me some advice on how to do this. And she looked at me and she said, don't get tired. And those were true words of wisdom.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Every week, we do root for Tom to win the lottery, especially since he has promised my 11-year-old granddaughter that when he wins, he will buy her tickets to a Billie Eilish concert and arrange for her to go backstage.
Absolutely.
She is super excited about this.
It is the educational lottery, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much, Debbie.
Thank you. That's sweet.
All right, when you talk about Tom's impact, you think about the many folks who have taken those tours. Show of hands if you've had one of Tom Owen's tours. We knew
my
Andy
goodness.
did. Wow. I mean, a majority of the room. All right, to give another sense of that, we have Aaron Miller, the Vice President of the Leadership Louisville Center. When Aaron joined that team in 2011, he was on one of those tours and has come to appreciate just how important they are after nearly 40 years.
Thank you.
Hello, Aaron.
Hi. Hello, everybody. It's an honor to be here. I have been with Leadership Louisville Center about 12 years. For those of you that don't know, we're about a block and a half down the street. We're a nonprofit, and our mission is to connect people with community. And when you say those words out loud, I mean, that kind of describes what Tom has been doing his entire career. So we were founded in 1979, and I think we figured out that you've been speaking to every class since then, since the very, very beginning.
That's true.
So that's 44 years of Leadership Louisville classes. And our Focus Louisville class, which is like a 3-day version, has been going on since the 80s. And I am pretty sure Tom has given that tour to every session of that. And that's 4 times a year, times probably 40 years, so 150 some tours just in Focus Louisville alone. So we're talking thousands and thousands of people that he's impacted. And he usually does a walking tour downtown. Andy was talking about that downstairs with the magnets. It's always fun because we have a timed, it's like you got about 45 minutes to get down Main Street and up 5th, up by Metro Hall. And back where the statue of King Louis was, Tom would stop there and he could story tell beside that statue for an hour and a half. And we were always like, Tom, you got to get him on the bus. We got to get on the bus. There's a bus. We got to get on the bus. So the bus then would take a tour of some of our historic downtown neighborhoods, the West End, and other parts of Louisville that a lot of people wouldn't otherwise have ever experienced. Here are some comments from the survey from just the most recent. This is one session of Focus Louisville, about 50 people or so. This is some comments. The question on the evaluation is, what was your favorite experience during Focus Louisville? My favorite had to be our time with Dr. Owen. He is so knowledgeable about the history of Louisville. I've lived in Louisville my entire life and didn't know the true history. Tom's tour is an easy favorite. His enthusiasm is infectious. I love history, and no one tells our history better than Dr. Tom Owen. This is multiple evaluations. The tour with Tom Owen was also great because he's so knowledgeable and enthusiastic about the history of Louisville. He was so passionate and knowledgeable. He made it such a fun experience. And the next one was, and I just pulled this off surveys earlier today. I was just clicking, copy, paste, click, copy, paste. My favorite experience was the historic tour in Louisville with Tom Owen, a legendary historian.
That's wonderful.
So if you pull all of these words out from these evaluations, and I'm sure if I made a word cloud of 40 years of these, You're going to see passionate and knowledgeable and enthusiastic and legendary. And I think those are all extremely, extremely appropriate descriptions. He's that teacher that makes it fun and makes you know how excited you are to know things you didn't even know you wanted to know, right? So people leave these tours and they want to know more. And so it's inspiring. So I've been with Leadership Louisville for 12 years, and I knew who Tom was. You know, I think we all know who Tom was, but I never had a chance to meet him. So it has been a joy as part of my job for the last 12 years to get to work with Tom. And he has not missed a session of Focus Louisville in 12 years. I don't know if he's ever missed one. There was once when we were a couple weeks before the tour, just kind of checking in, hey, make sure you got the date and the time and everything. And I'll never forget this. Tom says, I'm having surgery on my tongue on Tuesday, but I should be good by Thursday. And I was like, no, we're not. How are you? I'm Tom Owen, and I give a tour. Like, how are you going to give a tour? But it was fine. He was fine. It worked out. And, you know, you mentioned the R word earlier here, retirement. Like, people will sometimes say to me, like, what are we ever going to do if Tom retires? Don't say it. It's like Voldemort. We're not going to talk about it, right? Like, because I don't know that we could create the experiences we do in some of our programs without Tom's influence. I mean, I really, there is no other Tom Owen in Louisville. You are the secret sauce to a lot of our programs. I know he's the secret sauce to many of your lives and your workplaces and your interactions, and the leadership you've shown to our city throughout your career is just unbelievable. So love you, Tom, and it's been an honor to get to be part of this tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Now to Tom's political side. We're going to hear from two folks who know him very well, serving in the trenches with him at City Hall. We welcome Tina Ward Pugh and Sherry Bryant Hamilton, and they're going to talk a little bit about how Tom was a progressive.
Wait, I think
Is
Tina
Tina
is
not here?
first, but she's channeling Tom, I
mean,
believe.
in a
Tina?
big. She's actually.
Wait, oh, there she, wait.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody aboard the number 9. Down Frankfurt Avenue, heading straight to the heart of Louisville, affectionately known as Tom Owens Louisville.
Well done.
Thank you. This is a pretty important night for me. I'm nervous, mainly because Tom is such a dear person to our community. So I didn't want to forget anything, so I'm going to read my remarks. Please forgive me, but I wanted to make sure I said everything. Good boy for a glass of water. So, dear Doctor, Professor, Historian, Alderman, Councilman Tom Owen has said many, many important things through the years. And one thing Tom said that rings most true for anyone who's paying attention is that little decisions and big decisions play a role in shaping what happens to you.
That's right.
Make no mistake, our community has been shaped even until today by those neighborhood leaders and public servants through the years. Tonight we'll call them conductors. From Melissa Mershon, Scotty Green, to me, and to Bill Hollander. From Steve Maugre, Cyril Allgaier, and Jim King to Patrick Mulvihill. From Ellen Call to Brent Ackerson. From Glenn Stuckel to Marcus Winkler. From Paul Bather to Councilwoman Sherry Bryant Hamilton. From Vicki Welch, Rick Blackwell, Reggie Meeks, and Attica Scott to David Tandy, Tom Owen was on board, helping shape it all. Tom Owen was so much more than the nutty professor who rode his bike everywhere. He sure left his mark, though, as an elected official.
Why, look over there, and you'll see our city went from piling trash and thinking about burning it to recycling and greening our city. Oh yeah, and it was Tom who made historic preservation a priority that gave us the wisdom to know the value of Whiskey Row, colonial gardens, and a dream like Slugger Field that back then even Kevin Costner was envious of. Now don't get too relaxed, because on the next leg of this number 9 engine ride, I'll be telling you that it was Tom Owen who fought for a long time alone and with few others for better ways to deal with our mounting trash and the environment. He was right there when we were pushing for an affordable housing trust fund. Tom and I led the passage of the smoking ban, public health policy. And Tom was a champion for the fairness ordinance from the beginning. This from former Alderwoman Melissa Mershon, who was president of the Board of Aldermen at that time. I quote, "One of my favorite memories of Tom was during one of the fairness votes in the early 1990s. It was a very tense night with huge crowds outside City Hall. The anti-fairness crowd was loud and angry. Tom walked calmly into my office where I had all the files on the ordinance. He sat down and read through some of the petitions that had been sent to the legislative body. Tom scribbled some notes onto a small piece of paper and stuffed it into his pocket. We walked onto the floor of the Board of Aldermen, a little dejected because we knew we didn't have the votes to pass the legislation, Alderwoman Mershon said. Tom introduced the ordinance and gave one of the most impassioned speeches I've ever heard in the chambers. She recalled without a note, except what he had scribbled in her office. The speech was so powerful because it came from his heart. Tom has a keen mind, but he led from his heart. His brains and compassion made him an exceptional public servant, said former Alderwoman Melissa Mershon. So I bet you think that's where I feel the greatest connection with Tom, but it's not. Tom grew up as a person of strong faith and attended seminary. He grew up only modestly involved in neighborhood associations until he was 50. He credits the Methodist roots that, quote, taught me that I didn't have to check my God-given curiosity or my God-given mind at the door of the church. And at 50 years old, he states, the one thing I knew is that I loved this community and I was a trained historian. So suddenly, both out of being trained in biblical studies and as a historian, you don't see yourself as just being a victim of capricious fate. Oh, it don't make any difference what you do. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Nay, nay, 1,000 times nay, says Tom. I too grew up in a Protestant faith tradition and attended the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, where I graduated when Dr. Roy Honeycutt was the president. I have long admired the public servant Tom Owen because he figured out how to live his faith in the public square. And you know, it ain't easy. Ironically, it was at Southern Seminary that I woke up as a budding young feminist social worker. I tell you these things tonight, Tom. You have delighted the hearts of so many people in so many ways, but here are the two that are the dearest to me. When I woke up at Southern Seminary as a feminist theologian, my world changed. My passion for advancing the status of women and girls was a clarion call for my life everlasting. So you gave me the greatest gift ever by mentioning in 3 or 4 sentences in the Louisville History of Louisville book, encyclopedia, when you wrote that this new female member of the Board of Aldermen insisted on being called Alderwoman. And it wasn't because you mentioned me that makes that so dear. I believe it was because you knew that that change would be a turning point in our shared history. It was because from that moment on, as we contemplated merger, it was never on anyone's mind that there wouldn't be councilwomen. And secondly, what an honor and a gift to sit by you and learn from you for 12 years on Metro Council. You were one of the best examples here locally of what he meant when James declared that faith without works is dead. The miracle being, though, that you figured out how to do it in the public square. Who does that?
Thank you. Thank you.
So as the number 9 engine comes to its next stop here, where I see one of our former colleagues, Councilwoman Sherry Bryant Hamilton, waiting to tell us a few stories,
Sweet.
I'll remind you all of the quote I shared with you at the beginning of this, when Tom said, "Little decisions and big decisions play a role in shaping what happens to you." Clearly, doctor, professor, historian, alderman, councilman, and dear friend, Tom Owen has taken that to heart, and we are all better for it. Thanks be to God.
Thank you. Where did you get those quotes? Thank you. Thank you.
Sherry.
Sweet. Goodness.
Good evening. That's a tough act to follow.
Yes, it is.
Knew I should have gone first. But I'm so happy to be here this evening and to have been invited to help honor Tom Owen, my friend and former colleague. I first met Tom in 1991, a year after he became 3rd Ward Alderman, and I had come back to work for the city at the Board of Aldermen as a legislative assistant for the 10th Ward Alderman, at the time, Alderman Rhonda Richardson.
Oh, my goodness.
As you remember, there were 12 wards in the city, and each month, the aldermen and their staff went out to eat lunch somewhere in the respective district or district ward of the aldermen so that we could build camaraderie and get to know each other better.
Good idea.
I'll never forget one occasion when it was time to go to lunch in the 3rd Ward, which was fortunate to have an abundance of restaurants all along Barchtown Road. But Tom and Phyllis invited us to their home for a home-cooked lunch. And I was introduced to couscous for the first time.
A lot of people introduced to couscous.
I tried to make it at home several times after that, but it was never as good as what Phyllis prepared.
That's great.
In 1991, Melissa Mershon was the president of the board, and she and Rhonda Richardson wanted to pass a fairness ordinance. Rhonda was one of the chief sponsors, and she and Melissa worked very hard to get support among their colleagues, which would need a simple majority, or just 7 votes to pass. At first, only Tom Owen and Reginald Meeks signed on and supported the ordinance. And after 9 months of an educational campaign, numerous hours of public forums, personal testimonies, open mic standoffs in the packed chambers, and intense lobbying on both sides of the issue, they were finally able to get the needed 7 votes from their colleagues to ensure passage. But you'll remember that this issue of fairness was very controversial and a very bold step 30 years ago for any elected official to take. The opposition was fierce and very vocal, and they vowed to defeat any elected official, especially black elected official, who supported the ordinance in any future election. 3 of the sponsors silently backed away, and when the vote was finally cast in 1992, it failed 8-4. But Tom had held firm in his conviction that it was the right thing to do. He never wavered. In 2000, when I became an alderman, we were finally able to pass the fairness ordinance with the support of Tina, who was now an alderwoman, and Bill Allison, who replaced Tom on the board. But merger had just passed in 2002, and Tom, Tina, and I were elected to the Metro Council. The Metro Council was mandated to reaffirm and reenact every ordinance that had been passed by the aldermen, and the county commissioners. So in December 2004, after a 3-hour marathon meeting and debate, Tom once again was able to stand by his support and commitment for fairness in a vote on the floor, and this time it passed again. In 1993, I became the clerk of the board, and whenever Tom explained his vote or gave testimony on any issue in a committee or board meeting, I wanted to make extra sure that the record of the meeting minutes accurately reflected his statements, because he was often sharing history and background on many issues that I knew would be important, not just for the record, but for researchers in the future. Besides being a historian, Tom was from the Parkland neighborhood in West End, and the very first real environmentalist that I knew. He was able to work on the issues he cared about deeply as a chair, vice chair, or a member of a number of committees on the council, not just the Planning and Zoning or Transportation and Public Works Committee, but also on the Smoking Ban Ad Hoc and the Minority Affairs Committees. And although controversial at the time and not always universally supported, he was able to get bike lanes on city streets and a citywide recycling program instituted. And even though I was still a smoker at the time,
I forgot.
he was able to get my support for a citywide smoking ban because it was the right thing to do.
That's great. That's great.
Education and personal testimonies were and still are very persuasive. Tom even took government to the front porch of his constituents to hear directly from the people he represented. I believe that was a first. As a fitting tribute to Tom, there are 2 bright red bicycle stands outside of City Hall on the 6th Street side, erected by the Metro Council in May of 2015 for visitors to local government to park their bikes. There are so many instances, both when we were on the council and since we left city government, where we have been able to support each other and work together on promoting and preserving local history. Most recently, when my friends, former neighbors, and I started working on writing a book about the history of our beloved Chickasaw neighborhood a few years ago, Tom was among the first persons we sought out for guidance. In another instance, I was able to convince some old family friends from out of the city that U of L was the right institution to house their family's personal and professional archives because of my trust, respect, and relationship with Tom.
Thank you.
One last instance I'll cite was when I asked Tom to write a letter of support for me for a Kentucky historical marker for the former Red Cross Hospital on South Shelby Street. As you know, before integration, it was the only hospital for many years where Black physicians had staff privileges and could treat and operate on their patients, and where my father was hired to work when he moved to Louisville in 1947. Not only did Tom write the letter and we were able to get the marker approved, but he shared with me that when Red Cross changed to community hospital and filed for bankruptcy in 1975, he personally went in the building and retrieved the many records and documents for posterity that had been left scattered about when the hospital closed. Tom, thank you so much for your commitment and dedication to preserving and sharing history. Because who knew that teaching and just talking about history could be so controversial, even radical? But as my mentor, the late 12th Ward Alderwoman Lois Morris often stressed, but you've got to know the history, and you've got to know your history. I want to thank Tom Owen because you certainly made that possible and a reality for so many. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, just a couple more. Each person in council had their own legislative aide. Tom had several devoted aides during his time: Carolyn Cromer, Tara Long, Karen Voyer, Shannon Hensley, and Fran Thompson. I know many of them are here tonight. We want to welcome Carolyn Cromer, who is representing the group and giving us some insight into Tom. She grew up with Tom's children and has known him almost all her life. She says he remains an inspiration and certainly considers him a good friend. Carolyn?
Is this a roast? Roast?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Hi, Phyllis. I am representing 5 of us here today. We got together and shared memories, so some of these are shared memories. Tom had a reputation for being honest and fair among those with whom he worked at the Board of Aldermen and Metro Council. He was a self-described wonk, which loosely translates for him as political nerd. He was passionate about serving his community, and he excelled at the messy process of passing good legislation. Tom told me once that whenever he looked at one of his colleagues on the Board of Aldermen, he imagined a 7 on their forehead. And that's because it took 7 votes to pass any legislation at that time, and on any given night, he might need that colleague as an ally.
That's right.
Tom led his wards and districts through projects that have affected our lives for the better and shaped our experiences living along Bardstown Road. These include Baxter Avenue Theaters, the Kroger on Bardstown Road, the renovation of Douglas Loop, which has made it the vital commercial district that it is today, murals on Bardstown Road, the recreational loop in Cherokee Park. How many of us have been on that? Front Porch Tuesdays. It also includes the Rite Aid that does not exist on Bardstown Road and Grinstead, or the CVS that is not where the Twig and Leaf is, because those he fought against. He was a champion of the Bardstown Road Overlay District, fighting to keep the pedestrian level experience along the corridor intact. He insisted that if Walgreens could change their store layout in Harvard Square, by gosh, they could change it in the Highlands. And of course, he led the effort to bring recycling to Louisville. Tom was recycling before recycling was cool. I vividly remember as a kid going to U of L football games with his children, and afterwards we would roam the bleachers picking up aluminum cans to turn in for money.
That's true.
And if you've never seen one of Tom's public service announcements for how to recycle or how to ride a bike, you have really missed some good entertainment. Tom took risks that were not comfortable. The one I remember most was fairness. Tom received threatening letters and very angry phone calls, but he unfailingly, as we have heard, he unfailingly stood up for what he believed was right through multiple very difficult votes. We all know that Tom was a champion of public and alternative transportation. What other alderman or councilperson was rolling up to City Hall on Tark or on his bicycle? Tom rode his bicycle on every single street in his district every year in order to record potholes and other problems that needed city services. Sweat the small stuff was one of his mottos. But what was it like to work for him? Imagine Tom coming into the office, propping his hiking boots up on his desk, a rubber band holding his pants legs away from his bicycle chain. And I would try to talk to him about something serious. And he would turn around towards me, and he would have scotch taped the flaps of skin above his eyes and look at me and expect me to have a serious conversation with him. And then there were the infamous phone calls that would start with me calling him. He would sound a little bleary, and I would say, "Tom, where are you?" "Oh, I'm just taking a few minutes here underneath my desk." He was taking a cat nap. There was his relationship with technology, which was challenging at best.
Still.
Tara Long
deserves the credit for finally dragging Tom into the 21st century and insisting he have a cell phone and use it and use the calendar on it. And then there were his doodles, the notes on the slips of paper that we have heard about that we were supposed to decipher, pulled out from pockets and his bag and his coats, information in between arrows and other graphics. We aides felt a little bit like archaeologists. But in fact, I have to say this, there are also some Tomisms. My favorite is probably, I make it up.
That's true.
You can pretty much get away with anything if you say, I make it up, which is Tom's way of saying, but it might be true.
That's right.
Or that you don't, another lesson I learned from Tom, you don't have to have meetings in your office. You can have them at a bar or at a coffee shop at your district. You can also speak any language you try, even if you can't really speak it. Tom was great to work with. He was compassionate and kind, and he had integrity from here to Sunday. And I learned so much from him. I could go on and on about all the projects that he's championed that have made Louisville better. So Tom, thank you for all you've done for Louisville and for your friends and neighbors.
Thank you. And she is speaking for all of those over 23 of 27 years, yes. 23 of 27 years who were the front line of defense and the backstop and the absolute essential people for a person who had a full-time job and was working 30 hours extra a week, but always moving, doing all this kind of carrying on. But City Hall, I depended on my aides, and all of them I have enduring gratitude. Thank you. No doubt.
When we asked the family to give input into tonight's speakers, we loved it when Tom's son Stephen said there were 2 Tom whisperers in his campaign. There were political operatives and good friends who really understood and understand Tom. They are Jeff Noble and Ken Herndon, and Ken is here to join us tonight. And we're curious to learn, what is a Tom whisperer, Ken?
I'm not sure if well. We've heard lots of stories about quiet Tom, thoughtful, almost reverent Tom, but there is an underbelly. I've seen it. Back in 2002, when after Tom had been on the Board of Aldermen for many years and he decided to run for council for the very first Metro Council after merger, he honored me by asking me to run his campaign. And as such, I ended up being the person who went door to door with him as he knocked on doors more than others. And if you've ever done that, the volunteer has the voter files, and you tell the candidate who they're about to talk to, then they alone go to the door. I believe we were on Chichester one day, and there was a setback of a house about 50 feet off the road, and I said, this is Mr. Smith. And the door was open, but the screen door was shut. And about halfway up the walk, Mr. Smith came to the door and said, don't you come up here and knock. You have never done anything. You guys are worthless down there. Don't you come up here. Don't you bother me, Mr. Owen. You've never done anything. He says, yes, I have. And he started explaining how I fixed that gutter and I fixed this and I fixed all. No, you haven't. You've never done anything before, and you're not going to do anything down there. You're all worthless. And Tom took his clipboard and slammed it on the ground and said, don't you stand there behind that door and yell at me. You come out here and say that to my face. And all 3 of us just stood there. And Mr. Smith started to chuckle. And Tom and I we were all laughing. And finally, Mr. Smith said, come up here. And Tom walked up, they had a brief conversation, he handed a brochure, they shook hands, and to the best of my recollection, I don't think he took a yard sign, I'm pretty sure he did.
I doubt it.
But it was great, and so we continued our walk, and the whole time I was like looking back, like, what was that? But that quiet passion did gurgle to the surface, as they say. Still waters run deep, but once in a while there's a ripple. And I got to see one firsthand. It was a great story I've told many times before. Fast forward 20 years later, last year Andrew Owen ran for council, and he also asked me to run his campaign. As we were beginning to talk about the campaign and what we're going to do and say, we discussed the direct mail campaign. And I said to Andrew, you can't make the same mistake that Al Gore made and not use Bill Clinton. We have to talk about Tom in one of your mail pieces. And this is it. A great picture of the two of them on the front. And I'd like to close by reading Andrew's comments about his dad in this mail piece. I learned from the best. Growing up, I learned firsthand from the gold standard of public service, Tom Owen. Our families teach us to do right by our community. My parents taught me to work hard, be fair, and always consider the other point of view. I'll proudly take those lessons to Metro Council. Andrew is doing that as of January, following in the footsteps of a great man whom I have had the pleasure to be part of honoring tonight, and the great honor of knowing you and Phyllis and your whole family. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Love that. Well, as we start to close tonight, speaking of Andrew and those who know him best, his family, of course, and his children. As we said, Phyllis is watching from home with their son Stephen and his wife, but we have their other two children with us tonight for the last word, and that is Andrew and Elisa. And as many of you know, Andrew was recently elected to District 9's new representative on Metro Council. So Andrew Owen and Elisa Owen.
So some of my stories have been stolen already, so I'll maybe try to fast forward through a few of those. First, on behalf of all of the Owen family, I want to thank so many friends and family for coming, including those who have shared their stories with Dad, with all of us.
Yes, yes.
We feel the love and the support. I want to offer a special thanks to David and Diego Saez, my Spanish brothers,
stand up.
for coming all the way from Madrid.
Woo!
In 1989, David spent his senior year at Atherton and lived with Mom, Dad, and I, while Elisa, at the same time, spent a year abroad and lived with Felipe, Nieves, and Diego. The decisions surrounding those events, made over 30 years ago, changed our lives and have enriched us in unimaginable ways.
Amen. Lord.
I want to thank Andy Trinan and the Fraser History Museum for sponsoring this event and hosting us here tonight. Beautiful venue and an incredible community asset. My wife Nancy had the privilege of working here for a few years, and she loved coming to work every day at this amazing facility. I also want to thank Bill Goodman and the Kentucky Humanities Council for creating this honorary celebration, which is now in its second year, to recognize Ed Hamilton, Dad, and others in the years to come who have added so much rich texture to our collective lives. Finally, I want to thank Rachel Platt for serving as the primary organizational and creative force behind tonight's event.
Yes.
Throughout the planning process, Rachel has displayed her skill, professionalism, and compassion. Thank you, Rachel. So I think most people are aware of the concept of winning the birth lottery. It's just that the common conception of that phrase means that a child is born into a family of great wealth and power, an aristocratic family. After listening to the colorful stories and personal remembrances of Dad and Mom tonight, one theme that I hope comes across loud and clear is that the family we were born into was not one of great power and wealth. Although I do recognize that both of those things are extremely relative. With that said, Elisa, Stephen, and I, without a doubt, won the birth lottery. Because the incredible fortune of having Tom and Phyllis Owen as parents, and then later having Oma and Poppy as grandparents, to Isaac, Eli, and Quentin, Zoe and Kate, and Evelyn and Thomas has meant that we were born into a family of great, great love. And from the very first day of all of our lives, that was and never will be in question. In thinking about life with Mom and Dad, the distinct role each of them has played over the years comes into very clear focus. Now, I certainly don't believe their roles have in any way been mutually exclusive. They very much overlap and always intermingle. But with that said, I think of Dad's role in the family as the leader of the band. His general temperament, philosophy, theology, psychology, his view on how the universe functions is a song that is always played in the background of our lives. And in broad brush strokes, we have all marched to the beat of that drum. More specifically, Dad's role has been to teach us to love stories and information, to want to know how and why things work, to teach us to love community, both past and present. But above all, to pour into each of us the unparalleled gift of his endless curiosity and unique storytelling.
That's sweet.
Now let me remind you, every band leader knows that when musicians first come together, the band is nowhere near equal to the sum of its parts. While there is a common thread, notes on a sheet of music, the individual pieces must be molded with great attention to detail, with great care, and with constant encouragement, for the notes to sound good when played together. That is the role that Mom plays. And I will call her role, for lack of a better description, Master Sergeant. As amazing as Dad is, and he is most certainly that, Mom is and has always been the glue to everything we do and have always done as a family, year by year and on a day-by-day basis. Everyone that knows our family well knows that Mom serves in this role.
You got this.
Well,
Keep on going.
no, I'm good. My biggest problem is I feel like my pages are all screwed up.
Well, I'm hearing a thread.
And maybe they did. I lose some things. So, I'm going to share a few memories of Dad, and then we'll go from there. Growing up in a family where your mother was an apartment property manager and your father was a committed Third Ward alderman and then 8th District councilman, one of the things we learned how to do early and often was to pick up garbage. In the car with Mom waiting for her to show an apartment, go walk around the property and make sure that all the trash that was strewn around the building was collected and put in the dumpster. Be anywhere in the Third Ward with Dad, or for that matter, anywhere in Metro Louisville, and spot a dumping ground along the side of the road or a single piece of blowing trash, and we were likely to stop and have a bright side moment of our own making. So as a lawn boy and then later maintenance man at Lafayette Enterprise and the son of Councilman Owen, I have picked up more trash around this town than I care to remember. The part that I didn't bring with me for whatever reason was also a part about recycling. And we were, to hear it again, we were recycling when you had to take a magnet with you to determine which of the beer cans were steel and which ones were the much more valuable aluminum. So that was quite a long time ago. And I will remember one Easter morning, we were all dressed in our Easter best.
This is not pretty.
And I think Mom wasn't fully aware of what the plan was, but like Carolyn Cromer mentioned, the four of us, went out to try to find our treasure of recyclables. And we went to a Kentucky Derby event or maybe the aftermath of a Cardinal football game. And when we came home with our huge wad of cash in hand, with our Easter best smelling like day old beer, Mom was questioning the decision-making process, that's for sure. When Dad ran for mayor in 1998, I'm not sure anyone in town thought he could win. I'm not even sure he thought he could win. And I know I had my doubts. What people did know, without a shadow of a doubt, was that he had entered the race for all the right reasons. He knew more about the neighborhoods and the history of this city than anyone else. He cared more for the people of this community from all walks of life than anyone else. And perhaps even more importantly, he had shown throughout his years of service to this community that he was sincerely interested in only one thing: making Louisville a better place now and in the future.
Here, here.
At the end of that long campaign, after hundreds of miles of boots on the ground campaigning, after having a nearly impossible time getting the local media to cover any of his campaign events, 48% of the voters had been persuaded to join his vision for the city and voted for our leader of the band. 52% had not. It wasn't until Dad gave his concession speech at the end of the evening that even I realized just how great of an opportunity had been missed. What blew me away during that speech was Dad's grace and courage in defeat, and the genuine uniqueness of vision and approach he had promoted during that campaign. It struck me that, like his keen interest in recycling in the mid-1970s, in 1998, Dad was just a little bit ahead of his time.
Sweet.
Having a father that is almost universally loved in your hometown is quite an interesting experience. Morgan showed you the shirt earlier, but if you have seen the mugs or shirts that portray Dad as Obi-Wan Kenobi and say, "May the Force be with you, Louisville," then you have a pretty good idea of what I'm referring to. Since I have become a member of Metro Council, I can't begin to describe to you how many people have come up to me to tell me how much they love Dad and how at home that makes me feel.
That's sweet.
Damon, a young man that works in Metro facilities and repainted our office recently, asked if I was related to Tom, and then went on and on about the historical walking tour videos and how much that made him fall in love with local history.
That's right.
Sophia White, who works at the reception desk on the 3rd floor of the building where my office is now located, reminisced how Dad always serenaded her with operatic "Sophia, Sophia," when he got off the elevator. And legislative aides who served Republican colleagues on council have been effusive about how Dad made sure to ask questions about what was going on in their lives at the time and how much they remember and appreciate that personal touch. So if you all will indulge me for one final moment while I pay tribute in my own little way to the leader of the band. The leader of the band is tired. That's most definitely not true. And his eyes are growing old. I will concede that point.
Yes, that's true. I will.
But his blood runs through my instrument. His song is in my soul. My life has been a poor attempt to imitate the man. I'm just a living legacy to the leader of the band. Thank you.
That was great.
Sweet. How did you do that? How in the world did you do that? I couldn't have done that.
That was fabulous.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you all. Who knew we were going to be serenaded in that way? Thank you all so much. I'll let Andy wrap it up.
Well, I think we should let Tom wrap it up.
Are we going to let Tom wrap it up?
That was unbelievable, and all of your kids and grandkids are a tribute to you as a man, but it wouldn't be appropriate if we ended without some final words from Tom. So, Tom?
Yes. I just reemphasize that it has been a gift to have curiosity, to have a curiosity about place and story and people, and to be part of a faith that opens curiosity does not close curiosity. There's not a thing that we should not think about, speculate about. Nothing off limits. That's important to me. I love listening to people, believe it or not. I was walking down the street 1 hour and 45 minutes ago, and I heard a family from out of town. And the man turned to the little boy who had dropped his little green toy on the sidewalk and called him a name. And the name was Asturias. And I turned. That's a region in France. I mean, a region in Spain. A region in Spain that we have visited with the Sayas, who incidentally did come the furthest away to this event. Can we agree on that? And Phyllis and I were over the years. These are the landmark. These are the stellar foreign students that we hosted. But we have hosted a total of 5 in the late 90s, in the late 80s and the 90s. But anyway, this father called this kid Asturias. And I turned and I said, "Did you say Asturias?" And he said, yes, yes, yes. He said, "That's just," I call him by all kinds of names. And I said, "I have people visiting me right now from Spain, and we've been to Asturias with them." Listening is important to me, even though we're a lot of talking, a lot of energy. But I think listening is important. The only other thing that, again, going back to what I said earlier, is that despite tough times, to be able to still express gratitude is significant to me. And that's it. Thank you.
We made it. Folks, our mission here at the Fraser History Museum is to mean more to more people. It's to ignite the human spirit with thoughtfully crafted stories. It's our personal goal to mean more to more people every day. It is my hope, it is Rachel's hope, that we mean a little bit more to you now than we did yesterday. If you're not a member, look into it. If you're not a donor, look into it. We continue to serve 30,000 kids, 12 nursing homes with content every day, and we want to continue to do things like this. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, family. We very much appreciate you. Have a wonderful night.
Thank everyone for coming. I'm very grateful. We made it through.
Oh, you did great. Oh.